What happens when a self-made CEO goes undercover to investigate poor customer service and finds a cook quietly feeding the homeless on his own dime? Xavier Vance sat in his car outside Store 8, watching customers trickle out of the small fast casual joint. He built the business from a food truck 10 years ago, scraping by in the early days, grinding 16-hour days, sleeping in the truck some nights. Now they had 10 stores across 3 states. But lately he'd started seeing a pattern in the customer complaints from this location's slow service, cold food, and one review that just read, "This place doesn't care anymore." He hated that. Xavier hadn't been to this store in over a year. It wasn't personal once you open 10 stores, you're trusting a lot of people to do the right thing. But he was starting to feel like maybe he was trusting too much. He looked down at his worn jeans and hoodie, ran a hand over his shaved head. The fake name tag read, "Chris New Hire." He'd shaved his beard and wore thick-rimmed glasses. No one here had ever met him in person. The manager of this store had started after the store opened, and the staff was all different from last year. They wouldn't know his face. He walked in. The manager, Ron, didn't bother looking up from his tablet. "You the new hire?" "Yeah. Chris," Xavier said. Ron motioned with his chin. "Aprons are in the back. Ask Dario what to do. He's on grill." Xavier nodded and headed to the back. The kitchen was tight, hot, and busy. A tall man in his 40s, with deep lines under his eyes and salt in his hair, was flipping patties on the grill with smooth rhythm. "Hey. I'm Chris. Supposed to train with you?" Xavier said. The man glanced over and gave a tired smile. "I'm Dario. You ever grilled before?" "Little bit." "Good. Grab those buns. We'll take it slow." They got into a rhythm. Dario worked fast but clean, always checking temps, wiping down surfaces. He didn't talk much, but when he did, his voice had warmth. About an hour in, Xavier noticed Dario pulling out extra patties and buns. More than what was on the order screen. "You got a big order coming?" Xavier asked. Dario looked around, then lowered his voice. "Nah. Just making a few extra meals. For the alley?" Xavier squinted. "Alley? Couple folks back there. They don't ask for much. I just give 'em a burger and fries if I can." Quietly. Xavier blinked. "Wait. Does the store pay for that?" Dario shook his head. "Nah. I cover it. Just don't tell Ron. He doesn't like it." Xavier paused, watching Dario wrap the meals carefully and slide them into a paper bag. "How often you do that?" "Almost every shift." "Been rough for some folks lately." "I get it. I've been there." Xavier didn't say anything. Just nodded. At the end of the rush, Ron came back, face red. "Dario. Why are we short on product again? Do you not know how to count?" Dario stiffened. "I'll make up the difference." "You said that last week." Ron hissed. "Get it together, man. We're not a charity." Xavier clenched his jaw. Later that night, after close, Dario slipped out the back with the paper bag, and Xavier followed at a distance. Behind the store, near a dumpster, 2 older men and a woman were sitting on milk crates. Dario handed over the bag like it was nothing, no fanfare, just kindness. One of the men looked up, eyes shining. "Thanks, D. You're a good man." Dario just nodded. "Y'all be safe tonight." Xavier had to step back into the shadows. His chest was tight. This man, this quiet cook, was getting chewed out for feeding people. Spending his own money. And no one knew. The next morning, Xavier showed up again for his training shift. Ron seemed irritated. "You sure you're new? You're not bad on the line. Just pick things up fast," Xavier said. He worked another full shift with Dario. Watched him stay calm when orders were backed up, help the new cashier who was clearly overwhelmed, and stay half an hour after close to mop the floors because the night cleaner flaked again. No one thanked him. No one even seemed to notice. That night, as they were locking up, Xavier turned to Dario. "Why do you still do it?" he asked. Dario looked confused. "Do what?" "All of it. The food, the extra time. The kindness. Doesn't seem like anyone here sees you." Dario gave a small shrug. "I don't do it to be seen. Just feels right." Xavier stood there, quiet. He'd seen enough. Tomorrow, he wasn't coming in as Chris anymore. Xavier arrived at store 8 before sunrise. The parking lot was still empty, save for a delivery truck idling near the back. He stood under the awning, a cup of gas station coffee in his hand, watching the first hints of daylight stretch over the strip mall. His hoodie was gone. Today he wore a black wool coat and leather shoes. No glasses, no name tag. He hadn't told anyone he was coming, not corporate, not regional managers. He wanted to walk in without a script. By the time he stepped through the front door, the store had opened. A single cashier was behind the register, tapping at the screen with uncertainty. 2 line cooks were already sweating on the line. One of them wasn't Dario. The cashier noticed him and blinked. Can I help you?" Xavier gave a small nod. "Where's Ron?" The cashier hesitated. "He's in the back." "Want me to get him?" "No need." Xavier walked past the counter, through the kitchen, and pushed open the office door without knocking. Ron was sitting behind the desk, eating from a styrofoam container. He looked up mid-bite. "Who the hell? I'm Xavier Vance," he said calmly. "And I own this company." Ron froze, the fork halfway to his mouth. Xavier stepped inside and closed the door behind him. "We need to talk." Ron stood abruptly, brushing crumbs off his shirt. "Of course, Mr. Vance, I didn't realize no one told me, that's the point," Xavier said. "I didn't want anyone to know." Ron swallowed hard. "Was there a problem with service?" "I can explain, I already know what's going on. I've been working here the last 2 days. "Name tag," said Chris. "You've been too busy staring at your tablet to look at anyone's face." Ron's mouth opened, but Xavier held up a hand. "You're not going to talk. You're going to listen." He stepped closer. "You've created an environment where good employees are being squeezed dry, where kindness is punished, and where you care more about numbers on a screen than the people making this place run." Ron's face went pale. "Sir, you berated a man for being short on product without even asking why," Xavier said. "You don't know that he's feeding people who live behind your building. You don't know that he does it on his own dime. And you don't care." Ron's eyes darted around. "That's not part of his job, you're right," Xavier said. "It's not. That's the tragedy. He's doing more than his job, more than you've ever done, and you've made him feel like a burden." Ron's hands started to tremble. "I didn't mean any harm." Xavier didn't raise his voice. "You're done here. Effective immediately." Ron's breath caught. "You're firing me?" "Yes. This isn't negotiable. You'll be paid through the end of the week. Leave your keys on the desk." Ron's face twisted into disbelief. "But I've been here almost 2 years. And you've wasted every minute of it," Xavier said. "Now get out of my office." Ron didn't say another word. He set the keys down with shaking fingers, brushed past Xavier, and walked out without looking back. Xavier stood alone in the office for a moment, letting the silence settle. Then he stepped out into the kitchen. The 2 line cooks turned as he entered. The younger one looked nervous. "I'm Xavier," he said. "I own the company. Ron's gone. I'm here to fix things." Neither cook said anything at first. "Where's Dario?" Xavier asked. The younger one glanced at the clock. "He's off this morning. Comes in for closing shift." Xavier nodded. "All right. What's your name?" "Luis." "You ever been trained properly?" Luis hesitated. "Not really." Xavier scanned the prep station. "Let's start there." He rolled up his sleeves and got to work. For the next hour he coached Luis through the prep list, showing him how to balance speed with quality. He kept his tone even, answering questions without judgment. The other cook, a quiet woman named Shireen, gradually relaxed and started offering tips of her own. By midday, the kitchen was running smoother than it had in days. At the front, the lone cashier struggled to keep up with the lunch rush. Xavier stepped out to help, taking orders, refilling drinks, wiping down tables. No one recognized him, which was fine. He watched customers' faces as they waited. Some were impatient, others just tired. One woman with a toddler was clearly frustrated. After things calmed, he pulled the cashier aside. "What's your name?" "Bree. You're doing good work." That rush was intense. She looked surprised. "Thanks. It's usually worse when Ron's here." Xavier nodded. "What do you mean by that?" "He'd just disappear when things got busy. We'd be slammed, and he'd be in the back watching videos or yelling at someone." Xavier processed that. "How long have you worked here?" 3 months. "Anyone ever train you?" She gave a half shake of her head. "I asked once, but Ron said I'd figure it out." "You deserve better than that," Xavier said. "We all do." She gave a faint smile. That afternoon, Xavier called in his regional manager, a man named Philip. They sat in the office going over schedules, staffing gaps, and payroll. Xavier asked for a list of everyone who'd left the store in the last 6 months. The list was long. He scanned the names. "Find out why each of them quit. I want exit interviews, even if we have to call them now." Philip nodded, clearly rattled. "Understood. I want 2 more full-timers hired here by the end of the week. We're chronically understaffed. No more than 1 person on register at a time, ever." Philip scribbled notes. "And I want a bonus approved for Dario," Xavier said. $500 minimum. He's been keeping this place alive, and no one noticed." Philip looked up. "What did he do?" Xavier stared at him. "Everything." By the time the sun dipped low, the store was slowing down again. Xavier stayed through dinner, helping with orders and cleanup. Dario arrived just before 5, wearing the same tired hoodie and cap. When he saw Xavier standing behind the line, his steps faltered. Xavier pulled off his gloves and stepped out from the kitchen. Dario's eyes narrowed. "You're not a new hire." "No. I'm Xavier Vance." He held out his hand. "I own this place." Dario hesitated, then shook it. "Didn't expect that." "I didn't expect to meet someone like you," Xavier said. "You've been doing a lot more than just cooking." Dario shifted. "Did I break a rule?" "Yeah," Xavier said. "A rule I never should have let exist." Dario looked away. "I just figured. If I could help, I should." "You did more than help. You set an example. And I failed to see it until I was standing next to you." Dario didn't speak. "I let the wrong kind of people lead," Xavier said. "That's on me. But I'm fixing it. Starting now." Dario finally nodded, slow and cautious. "I want you on the leadership track," Xavier said. "We'll start training next week. Pay bump, better hours, and full support." Dario blinked. "Why me?" "Because you're already doing the job. You just didn't have the title." For the first time, Dario's shoulders eased. Xavier turned to the rest of the crew. "This place changes now. Everyone who stays gets trained, gets heard, and gets help. No more silence. No more looking the other way." The room was quiet, but something shifted. Later that night, as Dario cleaned the grill, Xavier stepped outside. The alley behind the store was quiet. He walked over to the spot near the dumpster and looked around. No one was there tonight. But he knew they'd be back. And next time, they'd be fed with the company's blessing, not in secret, not in shame, but with respect. Xavier returned to store 8 3 days later, this time with 2 human resources reps and a new interim manager, a woman named Lila who had successfully turned around 2 struggling locations on the east side. She had a calm presence, and a no-nonsense way of speaking that Xavier respected. She didn't smile much, but she listened well and moved with purpose. He didn't speak to the staff right away. Instead, he watched from the back office as the morning shift unfolded. Bree was behind the register again, this time with a second cashier, a recent transfer named Omar. Shireen was prepping in the kitchen. Luis was helping on the line, still a little hesitant, but improving. Dario wasn't scheduled until later, and Xavier had deliberately waited for his shift to put the next phase in motion. Lila stepped out quietly to do a walkthrough, stopping to check equipment logs and speak briefly with each employee. She didn't interrupt workflow, just observed and asked brief, direct questions. When she returned to the office, she shut the door behind her. "They're trying," she said, settling into the chair across from Xavier. "But the systems are a mess. No clear protocols. No prep charts. Inventories being guessed, and there's no check-in from regional." Xavier nodded. "I figured. Who was in charge of training before?" "No one, apparently," he said. "That's part of what we're here to fix." Lila handed him a clipboard. 3 of the employees are splitting extra shifts because of the vacancies, but they're not complaining. They're just burnt. Dario's one of them? She nodded. He's doing double what's on paper. But he's not asking for anything. Xavier leaned back. I owe him a conversation. Dario arrived just past 4, nodding politely as he passed the front counter. He didn't look around much, just headed straight to the back to clock in. Xavier followed him in. Got a minute? Dario turned, surprised. Sure. Xavier led him to the office and closed the door. I didn't want to hit you with everything last time, Xavier said. But I want to talk about what comes next. Dario folded his arms loosely. All right. I'm putting you into formal training for assistant kitchen lead. Lila's going to oversee it. You've already got most of what it takes, but you'll learn the paperwork, the systems, vendor protocols, everything Ron never taught anyone. Dario blinked once cautiously. That's a lot. It is, Xavier said. But I'm not dumping it on you. We're spacing hours to keep you under stress limits. You'll get the raise immediately, even during training. And any overtime is optional, not assumed. Dario was quiet for a moment. Why me? Xavier met his eyes. Because you lead without asking for a title. Because you never looked up for credit, only around to see who needed help. Dario shifted on his feet. I don't want to be some manager who just sits in the back. You won't be, Xavier said. And you'll never be the kind who forgets what it's like to sweat on the line. That's why I'm asking. Dario gave a small nod, slower this time. All right. I'll do it. Xavier reached into the desk drawer and handed him a sealed envelope. Your bonus. It's not charity. It's back pay for the value you've been giving this place for months. Dario didn't open it. He just tucked it into his apron and nodded once more. Xavier stood. Let's get to work. Later that evening, while orders were flying during the dinner rush, a heavy-set man in his 50s came through the front door, wearing a button-down shirt that strained at the collar and an expression that didn't match the warm lighting of the dining room. Xavier noticed him immediately. He had seen this man's name on the former employee list. Simon, an ex-regional manager who had left abruptly 6 weeks ago without explanation. Lila stepped in beside Xavier as Simon walked up to the counter. Bree greeted him, but he waved her off without making eye contact. I'm looking for whoever's in charge, he said. Xavier stepped forward. That'd be me. Simon eyed him. You're Xavier? That's right. Simon's expression tightened. I heard you canned Ron. Thought I'd come see the circus myself. Xavier kept his tone neutral. We're rebuilding. You have a reason to be here, or are you just sightseeing? Simon leaned in slightly. You know how many hours I worked for this company? You think I didn't see things? I let that store limp along because no one wanted to get their hands dirty. You want to pretend you're some hero now, fine. But don't act like you're any different. Xavier didn't flinch. I'm here because I realized I was wrong to be distant. You're right, I didn't get my hands dirty. That's changing now. Simon scoffed. Good luck. Half these people don't want to work. That cook you're praising? I told Ron to cut his hours. Said he was too slow. Xavier's mouth flattened. You gave that order? Dario wasn't fast enough. And he was giving food away. That's theft. Xavier's voice stayed even. He paid for those meals himself. Simon shrugged. Doesn't matter. Sets a bad precedent. If you let one worker play saint, the others start thinking they can do whatever they want. Xavier took a step forward. You're not with this company anymore. And based on what I'm hearing, that separation was overdue. Simon's face flushed. You think kindness is gonna fix sloppy margins? You're soft. Xavier didn't raise his voice. No. I'm intentional. And if you ever come back here to undermine the people trying to make this place better, I'll have you removed. Simon stared at him, jaw clenched, then turned and walked out without another word. Lila exhaled slowly. Glad he's gone for good. Xavier glanced toward the counter. Bree was still watching, shoulders tense. He walked over. You all right? He asked. She gave a quick nod. Was that guy really management? Used to be, Xavier said. Not anymore. She nodded again, slower this time. Orders kept coming, but the kitchen handled them. Dario was teaching Luis how to multitask on the grill, calmly giving pointers between orders. Shireen prepped methodically, her movements more confident than earlier in the week. Omar kept pace at the register, and Bree looked more at ease with someone beside her. At closing, Xavier gathered the full team in the dining area. No chairs were pulled out, he didn't want formality. Just presence. I've come back a few times this week for one reason, he said. To see what this place is really made of. What I've seen is effort. Strain, yes. But also pride. And people who care more than anyone gave them credit for. No one spoke, but they were listening. I won't pretend this is fixed. It's not. But it's changing. And you're part of that change. You're not invisible here. Not anymore. He let the silence hang for a second, then nodded. Tomorrow, we start shift team meetings. 10 minutes before open, every day. You'll get updates, input, and a say in how this place runs. No more guessing. No more chasing instructions that never came. Dario shifted slightly, arms crossed but relaxed. Xavier continued. We're also launching a hardship meal program officially. 2 meals per shift, on the house, for anyone in need. No questions asked? You just log it. I'll cover the cost. Shireen blinked, surprised. Bree looked over at Dario, who said nothing, just nodded once. Xavier looked at each of them. You've been holding the line while the people above you failed. That ends now. He stepped back. Clock out. Get home. We'll see you tomorrow. They left one by one, quieter than usual, but not uncertain. As Xavier locked the door behind the last employee, Lila turned to him. How'd that feel? He looked out at the empty parking lot. Like the first real day of work I've done in a long time. A week later, Xavier stood in the back corridor of Store 8, clipboard in hand, watching the kitchen through the narrow glass window. The changes were underway. Not finished, not perfect, but real. Lila had installed a new schedule board behind the prep station, and for the first time, it was color-coded, balanced, and legible. Shift leads were marked. Break windows were clear. Every prep task had initials next to it. It was a small thing, but it meant everyone knew their role before the first ticket printed. Dario was mid-shift, working the grill with a steady focus. He gave quiet directions to Luis, who now moved with more certainty. There was no hesitation when he reached for tools or adjusted temperatures. Shireen was prepping sauces in the corner, her headphones in, bobbing her head slightly. Bree and Omar were at the front, and for the first time, Xavier noticed customers waiting with patience, not impatience. He stepped into the office where Lila was reviewing the new onboarding packet she'd drafted for new hires. She looked up when he entered. Payroll's clean. Hours are stable. We're down to under 45 per week per employee, no unpaid overages, she said without being asked. Still need one more line cook. That's the only gap. Anyone in the pipeline? One. Just finished a trial shift yesterday. Quiet, but sharp. Willing to learn. Xavier scanned the hiring folder. We'll bring them on. We can't let this place slip back to survival mode. Lila leaned back in the chair. They're adjusting. Took a few days, but they're not waiting for permission anymore. He nodded. That's the goal. Later that afternoon, Xavier hosted something new, a voluntary after-shift roundtable in the dining area. No agenda, no pressure. Just a space to speak freely. Dario, Shireen, Bree, Luis, and Omar gathered around a corner booth. Lila stood nearby, listening without a clipboard. Xavier leaned against the table, arms folded. I want to hear what's working, and what still isn't. Start wherever you want. Luis cleared his throat. It's better now. But I still feel like I'm catching up. I didn't realize how far behind I was until someone actually showed me what right looked like. Shireen nodded. Same. I used to think the mess was normal. Like if stuff ran out or nobody told you what to do, you just figured it out. I didn't know it was supposed to feel this. Steady. Omar leaned forward. The register system still glitches during large orders. It froze on me twice this week. Bree added. And the tablet Ron used to keep in the office? It's still got old pricing. I think it's syncing with an outdated menu. Lila made a note. I'll escalate that to ID. That's a real issue. Xavier looked at Dario. You've been quiet. Dario glanced at the others, then back to Xavier. I keep thinking about the people out back. The ones I used to feed. They don't always come every day, but they're still there. And now that the meals are approved, I've seen other staff leave 1 or 2 extra bags without me asking. Xavier's eyes stayed on him. That wasn't just a policy change. That was you creating culture. Dario shook his head. It's not about me. I just started it. If it matters now, it's because people picked it up. Xavier nodded. That's leadership. Bree asked, Are we keeping the program long term? Indefinitely. Xavier said. And we're expanding it. Every store will have the same option. 2 per shift. Quiet. No fanfare. Shireen looked down at her hands. Why now? Xavier let the question hang a moment. Because I thought growth meant stepping back. Letting others carry the vision while I looked at spreadsheets. But I was wrong. You can't build a company you don't walk through. I built this from a food truck. I forgot what it meant to stand on tile floors for 10 hours. I forgot what it feels like to be ignored. Omar asked. What happens to other stores? If they've got managers like Ron? They won't for long, Xavier said. We're auditing all 10 locations. Every one of them will see surprise walkthroughs, anonymous staff interviews. First round starts next week. Luis blinked. Is that going to scare people off? I hope it scares off the wrong people, Xavier said. The ones who think their title protects them from accountability. The ones who stop listening. Everyone else? They'll be seen finally. Dario looked up. What if someone's not bad, just overwhelmed? Then we help them. If they're honest, if they're trying, we invest. But if they lie, or hide problems, or treat people like they're disposable, there's no seat for them anymore. Lila added, We're also changing how promotions work. No more time-based advancement. It's behavior-based. That includes how you treat peers, not just performance. Shireen smiled faintly. Feels like we're being treated like people again. You always were, Xavier said. We just stopped acting like it. The roundtable ended without ceremony. People clocked out, said their goodnights, and drifted into the cool evening air. No applause. No speeches. Just the quiet comfort of being heard. As Xavier walked the back hallway, he paused near the break room. A new poster had been pinned to the bulletin board. It read, "Every shift, 2 meals for those in need. Quiet service is still service." He hadn't made it. Neither had Lila. It was printed on plain paper, black ink, taped up without fanfare. He stepped outside, locking the door behind him. The lot was empty except for a man sitting on the edge of the curb, sorting through a weathered bag. Dario was standing beside him, handing over a paper sack and a bottle of water. The man took it with both hands, looked up, and gave a nod. Xavier didn't interrupt. Just watched from a distance, no title, no announcement. Just a man watching another man do something decent, because it needed doing. As he got into his car, he didn't feel triumphant. He felt responsible. And for the first time in a long time, that didn't scare him. It grounded him. He drove off without turning on the radio. No noise. No distraction. Just the quiet resolve of a leader who had finally returned to where it all began, not to reclaim control, but to rebuild trust, one shift at a time.